A millionaire saw his black maid studying late at night. What he did next shocked her. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching us from today. The big house of Victor Grant stood very quietly behind tall iron gates and neatly trimmed bushes. It looked like a castle from a story, but everything was shiny and perfect. The marble floors were so clean that they sparkled. Fancy lights called chandeliers hung in every room. Some came from faraway places like Vienna, and others had been in the family for a long time. They all glowed coldly under little lights in the ceiling. Sometimes soft classical music played from speakers in the ceiling, but even the pretty music felt like it didn't belong. Everything was in the right place. Nothing felt alive. Victor Grant, the man who lived there, moved like a shadow. He was 62 years old, neat and quiet, with eyes that used to look sharp and strong, but now looked deep and far away. He always wore nice suits and talked clearly, even when he didn't need to say anything. After his wife died, the house became even quieter. No one came to visit. There were no parties or fun talks. The workers in the house did their jobs very quietly. Food appeared on time. The rooms were cleaned perfectly. Fresh white flowers sat in shiny silver vases and were changed every third day. One of the workers was a young girl named Selina. She was the housemaid. Selina was quiet and kind. She was taught to not be noticed. She walked softly through the house, never stopping, never talking unless someone talked to her first. Her uniform was always clean, but a little too big. Her hair was tied in a tight bun, and she didn't look people in the eyes. To Victor, Selina was just part of the quiet house. She was like the furniture, always there, never causing trouble. Until one night, something changed. It was 2:15 in the morning. Victor woke up feeling thirsty, as he often did. The house was dark, but he saw a small strip of light under the kitchen door. That was strange. The workers always went to bed by 10, and no one used the kitchen after that. Wearing his robe, Victor walked down the big stairs, barefoot. He moved slowly, not because he was scared, but because the house was always so quiet, and he didn't want to break the silence. He thought maybe someone forgot to turn off a light. But when he opened the kitchen door, he stopped in surprise. Selina was there. She wasn't cleaning. She was sitting at the kitchen island under the bright light. There were big, thick books in front of her, papers with drawings, and a notebook full of neat writing. She wore a big gray sweater over her uniform. Her sleeves were rolled up and a pencil was behind her ear. Her head was down. She was studying. Victor didn't move. The moment felt special, like a dream. Her lips moved as she read quietly. He saw the names on the books: human biology, chemistry, medical procedures. Selina was studying to be a doctor. He gently cleared his throat. Selina jumped, almost spilling her tea. Her eyes looked up, scared. They were big, brown, and shiny like a deer caught in a light. I'm sorry, sir," she said, standing quickly. Her chair made a loud noise. I didn't think. He lifted his hand to stop her. "No, it's fine. I was just getting some water." She nodded fast. "Of course, sir. I'll leave." He stopped her again. "You don't need to." He walked to the sink, poured himself a glass of water, and looked at her book. "What are you working on?" She looked down. "An entrance exam," she said softly, "for an online pre-med program." He blinked. "I study after work," she added, unsure if she should keep talking. "I can't pay for real classes, but if I pass, I might get a scholarship." He looked at the books again. They were old and worn. There were notes everywhere. A neat drawing of a kidney was colored with pens. "You want to be a nurse?" he asked. She lifted her head. There was something strong in her eyes now. Not anger, something better. "A doctor," she said. He didn't answer. His mouth opened, then closed. She stood there, waiting, scared, but he didn't scold her. He just nodded, set down his glass, and said, "Don't let me disturb you." Then he left. But when he reached the hallway, he paused. The light from the kitchen still shone behind him. He had never truly seen Selina before. Not the girl who folded his shirts and cleaned his tables, not the quiet figure who worked for hours and never asked for more. He had only seen a maid. But now he saw a real person. Back in his room, Victor didn't go back to bed. He stood at his window, looking at the trees outside. Of course, there was a still feeling in his chest. It wasn't bad, just different. The next morning, he asked the house manager, Mr. Denham, "How long has Selina worked here?" "Almost 3 years, sir," Denham replied. "She's very good, quiet, sends money to her family in Louisiana, I believe." Uh, Victor didn't say anything else, but that night and the next, he found himself stopping at the top of the stairs at 2:15. Each night, the light under the kitchen door was there again. Each night, he listened to the soft sound of pages turning. He saw someone working very hard for a dream. During the day, he started to notice her more. How she carefully touched the china plates, how she smiled a little when sunlight hit the stained glass window, how she always treated the house with love, even when no one watched. He began to wonder what she dreamed about as a child. He began to think about things he had never questioned before. The money he had, the way he thought about others, and all the things he never saw. It all started with just a second look. A look that could grow into something bigger, understanding. That's how everything began. A man who had everything, a girl who had nothing, and a kitchen light shining through the dark. The next morning, Victor sat at the big breakfast table. His newspaper was open, but he didn't read it. His coffee got cold. Everything around him looked the same. Shiny, perfect, quiet. But the silence didn't feel the same anymore. It felt heavy, like it was watching him. Victor tapped his finger on his cup and tried to focus on the newspaper. It talked about something with real estate and money. He used to care about that. But now, the words just looked like black and white lines. He thought about Selina again, how she sat under the kitchen light, working so hard. He told himself to forget it, but he couldn't. The memory stayed like a small thorn in his mind. Later that day, he called Mr. Denham again. "How long has Selina been here?" he asked, like it was just a simple question. 3 years and 2 months, Denham said. "She worked in a house in Connecticut before. Always quiet, sends money home, has younger siblings, doesn't talk about her family." Victor nodded. "And her behavior?" "No problems," Denham said right away. "She does her work well, never causes trouble, asks for nothing." "We hardly know she's there," Denham added. That sentence hit Victor hard. We hardly know she's there. Like being invisible was a good thing. He let Denham leave, but he kept thinking. That night, Victor stopped at the top of the stairs again. The clock ticked softly. The light from the kitchen was there again. He walked quietly down the stairs but didn't go inside. He stood outside the kitchen and listened. He heard pages turn. He heard a pencil move on paper. He heard her voice, soft and tired, saying big science words. Her voice had a little southern sound from Louisiana, but the words were clear. He stood there longer than he meant to. He felt something strange, something deep. Then he went back upstairs before she knew he had been there. The next day he saw more. Not because Selina had changed, but because he finally looked. He saw how she opened doors gently so they wouldn't squeak, how she folded clothes with care, how her old shoes had worn edges, how she touched the piano keys like she was remembering a song. Selina sometimes sang a soft tune under her breath. It wasn't a song Victor knew, but it felt warm and gentle. Still, something about it made him feel strange inside. One afternoon, Victor was walking by the service entrance. He wasn't trying to listen, but the door was a little open. He heard Selina talking on the phone in a quiet, shaky voice. "No, I haven't told them," she said. "I can't lose this job, Mary. You know I can't. If I pass, then maybe, just maybe. But if I fail, then what was it all for?" There was a pause. "I'm trying. I really am. Just pray for me, please. I don't have much time." Victor walked away before Selina saw him. His chest felt tight. It felt very personal to hear someone speak like that, so full of fear, but also full of hope. That night, Victor couldn't sleep. He opened his laptop and searched for the name of the program Selena had mentioned. It was an online school that helped people become doctors. The program was connected to a good state university. Before anyone could join, they had to pass a test. If they got accepted, they had to pay for the classes. Um, the price wasn't too high for Victor, but it would be a lot for someone who didn't make much money. There were no scholarships listed. He read the website, the course list, and some stories from students. Then he closed the computer and sat in the dark. He didn't know why he cared so much, but he did. The next few days felt strange. Victor still made business calls, read reports, and lived in his big house. But deep down, he felt something building inside him. He watched Selena more closely now. She made breakfast, but never ate herself. She watered the garden every Sunday, even when others wouldn't bother. And sometimes she would touch the books on his shelves, like she was saying a quiet prayer. One evening, Victor stood by the window with a glass of scotch in his hand. The sun was setting and the house was quiet. He could hear the sound of a vacuum cleaner coming from the east wing. Then silence. He thought of what his father would have said. Never get involved with your staff. Helping them too much can cause trouble. But Victor couldn't stop thinking about Selena's voice that night. She wasn't just scared. She had a strong purpose, a reason to keep going. A week later, Victor saw Selena in the hallway late at night. She was sitting by the laundry room, books open on her knees. She didn't notice him until he gently cleared his throat. She looked up, surprised but calm. "I didn't mean to," she started. "It's all right," Victor said. "You're not in trouble." She nodded, unsure. "May I ask," he said, "what drives you?" She paused, then lifted her head. "When I was 10, my father died at home. There was no doctor in our town, and we couldn't afford the hospital. I sat with him for hours. He kept saying, 'Sorry.' I promised myself I would never feel that helpless again." Victor didn't speak. He didn't have to. He could hear her pain. It reminded him of something inside himself, something he had pushed away for years. That night, Victor went to his office and wrote a letter, not to the school, but to his lawyer. He wanted to start a scholarship. It would be a secret. No one would know it was from him. He didn't know why he was doing it. But he felt like even a small light could change a dark room. And for the first time in years, he wasn't afraid of the quiet. He liked it now because it didn't feel empty. The next morning, Victor woke up early. The sky was still dark. The smell of coffee hadn't reached the halls yet. He felt like something inside him was turning a page. He got dressed and walked through the quiet house. He now knew things he hadn't cared about before. Like how Selena folded laundry in the east corridor before breakfast. When he found her there, she was folding towels. The sunlight from the window made her look like she was glowing. Victor stood there, watching. Not like a boss, but like someone slowly understanding something. Selena moved quickly, with a serious look on her face. She looked like someone always racing against time. Then she saw him and stood up, surprised. "I hope I didn't disturb you," she said, looking down. "Not at all," he replied. Then he added, "I was just walking." They were quiet for a moment. Not an awkward quiet, but one filled with something that didn't need to be said. "You do this every morning?" he asked, pointing at the towels. "Yes," she said. "Before breakfast. The greenhouse makes the room humid." Of course it did. Victor had lived in that house for 30 years and never thought about that. She saw the small details, things he always missed. "Do you have a moment?" he asked. He didn't know why he said it so softly. She looked unsure, but nodded. He led her into the greenhouse. It was warm and smelled like flowers. Sunlight painted pretty shapes on the floor. He pointed to a bench under a fern. She sat, he stayed standing. "I've been thinking," he said, "about your father. I haven't told many people," she said. "I can see why," he replied. "It's not easy to share. It's not about easy," she said. "It's about what's true." That word stayed in his heart. He sat down across from her. Her face looked tired, but her eyes still had a light that didn't go away. "You want to be a doctor," he said. "Yes. Why not something else, like a nurse or technician?" She tilted her head, then said, "Because I don't want to stop halfway." Her words sat in his heart like a rock. "You could have chosen something easier." "I could have," she said, "but people where I come from die because there's no one to help. Not just to clean cuts, but to make decisions. I want to be the one who knows what to do." Victor was quiet. Then he looked at his hands. "I didn't know my wife had cancer," he said, "not until it was too late." Selena didn't say anything, but she didn't look away either. "She didn't tell me," he went on. "I was busy. I thought she was just tired. I was too late." "I'm sorry," Selena said softly. He shook his head. "I think I was sorry too late." They sat in quiet again, but it was a peaceful quiet. "I'm not telling you this to compare pain," he added, "but I see something in you, something I lost, or something I didn't notice in time." Selena looked down. "Most people don't want to see," she said. "They'd rather not know." Her words weren't mean, just honest. "You're not most people," he said without thinking. She looked at him, and for the first time, he saw how young she really was, but with eyes that had seen too much. "I should get back," she said, standing. "So should I," he replied. She turned to leave, but he added, "If you ever need anything." "I've already taken too much of your time," she said. "No," he said, stronger now. "You haven't." She nodded and left. That night, Victor opened the file from his lawyer. The scholarship was ready. He just had to give it a name. He called it the Grace Fund, named after his wife. The day before she passed, she had taught kids at the community center. She was in pain, but still smiling. The fund would be a secret. Selena would get a letter from the school. It would say a kind stranger had paid everything, her tuition, books, and even a small extra allowance. She'd never know it was Victor. He signed the paper and sent it. A week passed. Neither of them spoke about it. Life in the house went on. Breakfasts, cleaning, business. But Victor noticed things he didn't before. He read news stories about poor areas without doctors, about students like Selena who never got their chance. Then one day, he saw it, an envelope from the school. It was in the trash near the laundry room. He saw her name on it and the school's seal. He didn't read it. He didn't need to. That night, Selena stayed at the kitchen table longer than usual. Her books were open. Her pen was still. She stared at the wall, not moving. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small note. She opened it and stared at it for a long time. Then she smiled, a small, quiet smile. She picked up her pen and started writing again. This time, she wrote faster, more sure. Victor turned away. Back in his room, he sat on the edge of his bed. He didn't feel like a hero. He didn't feel proud. He just felt useful. For the first time in years, he had done something that wasn't for money or business. It was for one person, and the world didn't end. But the silence around him, it was different now. This quiet had weight. It had shape. You could almost hear the sound of a pencil writing on paper and pages turning. It was the sound of someone building a dream, one word at a time. And deep in that quiet, there was a tiny light, a little flame. It wasn't his, but it still lit up the whole house. The letter came on a rainy Thursday. The sky was all gray and cloudy, and the house felt extra quiet, like the rain had made even the walls sleepy. Selena found the letter hiding under a stack of clean towels in her little cubby near the laundry chute. Her name was on the front in neat block letters. It was from the university. She looked at it for a while, holding her breath. Then she went into her small room and closed the door. She sat on her bed and opened the letter with shaking hands. The paper was thin and the ink had smudged a little, but Selena didn't care. She read the first part once. Then again. She had been accepted. She was going to the program. The university would pay for everything. Classes, books, and even a little money each month. It was all thanks to someone who had given the money. The letter didn't say who, just the facts. Selena sat there, quiet, the letter in her lap. Her mind was spinning, but also frozen. She had worked so hard, studying late, taking secret tests, whispering new words to herself at 2 in the morning. Now someone finally saw her. Someone chose her. But the happy feeling didn't last long. It was like a small light that flickered and almost went out. A big problem stood in her way. She needed time to go to school. Even if the classes were online, she had to study, do homework, and join virtual labs. But she already worked all day cleaning floors, ironing sheets, and putting things in order. The little money from the university wouldn't pay the rent for her family back home. It wouldn't buy her mom's medicine. And it wouldn't help her little brother Ben or little sister Mari go to school. If she quit her job, everything her family needed would fall apart. Her chest felt heavy. She could barely breathe. The walls of her room felt like they were closing in. She gently folded the letter and hid it in her drawer under an old t-shirt from Louisiana. That whole day, she moved around like a ghost, doing her chores but not really there. Victor, the man she worked for, noticed. He didn't always say it, but he liked having Selena around. She made everything feel better, more peaceful. But that evening, something felt off. She looked tired, and her smile didn't reach her eyes. She looked sad in a way he had never seen before. Later, as Victor walked past the staff hallway, he stopped by her door. He heard her pacing inside. Not the kind of walking you do when you're thinking, but the kind you do when your heart is full of worries. He wanted to knock, but he didn't. Instead, he went to the greenhouse and sat with the flowers. It was quiet there, but not enough to calm the storm in his heart. He had thought giving Selena a chance would be the hard part. He didn't expect that she might say no. The next morning, Selena came to his study. She had never done that before. She stood at the door holding a thin envelope in her hands. When Victor looked up and saw her, he already knew. "I'd like to speak with you, Mr. Grant," she said softly. He stood up and showed her the comfy chairs near the window. The rain had stopped, but the sky still looked pale and unsure. Selena sat on the edge of a chair and held the envelope tightly. "I got an acceptance letter," she said, "from the university." "That's wonderful," Victor said. "There's a scholarship," she added, "an anonymous donor, full tuition, monthly help." He nodded. She paused, then looked at him straight in the eye. "Was it you?" she asked. The question was delicate. Victor thought about lying, but the look in her eyes made that feel wrong. "Yes," he said, "it was me." Selena let out a breath, but it wasn't just relief. It was more than that. She leaned back a little, her fingers relaxing. "I'm thankful," she said, "truly, but I don't think I can accept it." Her words hit Victor hard. "Why?" he asked, his voice louder than he meant. "Because it's not just about me," she said. "My family needs me. If I take this chance and leave, even just a little, they lose everything. I can't be selfish." "You won't be gone. It's online," he said. "But I can't work as much," she replied. "I won't earn enough to help them. Rent still comes every month. Medicine still costs money. School fees don't stop." Victor stood up. Victor stood up and walked slowly. He felt powerless. All his life, he had solved problems with money, but this wasn't that kind of problem. This wasn't something a check could fix. "What you call selfishness," he said at last, "I call bravery." She shook her head. "They need me more than the world needs another doctor." He looked at her with softer eyes now. "Selena, you've given everything, to your family, to this job, to a world that never gave you anything. If you give up your dream to keep surviving, you'll never get to really live." Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away. "I'm not asking you to leave them forever," he said gently. "But maybe it's time someone else helped you carry the weight." She didn't say anything right away. Then she slowly placed the envelope on the table between them. "No one's ever said that to me before," she whispered. "Not once." "I mean it," he said. The room was quiet. At last, Selena closed her eyes. "I don't know what to do," she said. "You do," Victor replied kindly. "You just never had permission to believe it." She opened her eyes and looked at him, really looked at him. not as someone above her, but as someone beside her, someone who understood. They sat there a long time, the envelope between them like a little bridge. At last, she nodded, slowly but with strength. "I'll try," she said. "I don't know how yet, but I'll try." Victor let out a breath he hadn't even noticed he was holding. He didn't say anything else. But their eyes met, and that was enough. It was a promise, silent but real. That night, Selena started to pack. Not because she was scared, but because she was ready. Her hands shook as she folded her uniforms and put her books into a small bag. She wrote a short letter to her siblings. She told them she was going to do something hard, but she would always be theirs. She taped a photo of her family near her bed, her mom, Mari, and Ben. Then she whispered a promise into the air. She wasn't leaving them. She was stepping forward. In the next days, the house felt different. The other workers noticed. The halls were a little too quiet without her. One night, Victor stood in the kitchen, looking at the empty stool by the counter. He made tea and left a cup there, even though she was gone. Maybe out of habit, maybe out of hope. Everything around him looked the same. But inside, he was different. He had spent his life collecting things, houses, cars, power, but he had never given someone a future before. And now that he had, he knew he could never go back to who he was before. He waited for news, a letter, a postcard, anything. Then one afternoon it came, a white envelope. No return address, but he knew it was from Selena. He took it to his study, closed the door, and opened it carefully. Inside was a note. "I'm here. It's overwhelming. I feel like I'm in a world that doesn't know what to do with someone like me. But I'm still walking, still trying. Thank you for giving me the space to begin." There was no name, just those words. Victor pinned the letter above his bookshelf, the first of many, he hoped. Outside, it started raining again. Not loud or stormy, just soft and steady, the kind of rain that helps things grow. Selena got off the city bus with a backpack and a folder. The campus stood in front of her, not huge or fancy, but new and big enough to make her heart beat fast. The sidewalks were still wet. Students walked around her in groups, talking and laughing. No one noticed her old sweater or her worn shoes. No one saw her hands shaking as she opened the door to the science building. Her first day flew by. She got instructions, schedules, and met a lot of new people. She took lots of notes and tried her best. Her classmates were younger, louder, and had shiny laptops and special water bottles. They talked about vacations and trips. They knew the professors' names like it was normal. Selena stayed quiet. She always got to class first and left last. Her notes were neat and colorful. She worked hard in group projects, doing more than her share. Every night, she went back to her tiny apartment with secondhand furniture and a hot plate. She studied until her eyes hurt. The money from the scholarship paid for her home and food. She tutored kids for extra money and sent it to her family. Her mom got her medicine. Mari and Ben had new shoes. Her days became a steady beat. Wake up, study, go to class, work, study again. She didn't dream while she slept. She lived her dream, minute by minute, word by word. But even then, she still felt unsure. One day, a professor gave a tricky problem in class. Everyone got quiet. Selena raised her hand. "I think it's a rare kind of job syndrome," she said calmly. "We learned it in the extra reading." The professor blinked, then smiled. "Correct," he said. "Very well done." For the first time, people started to look at Selena. Someone asked her name. It was a small change, but something special had started. People began to notice her. Not because they felt sorry for her, not because she was trying too hard, but because they were curious. Who was she? Where had she gone to school before? How did she know so much? Selena didn't talk a lot. She gave short answers and kept going. She walked through each day like a quiet river stone, not loud or shiny, but strong and calm. Far away at the big house, Victor read her letters. She still sent them by hand, on notebook paper inside simple white envelopes. She never signed them and never wrote his name, but he always knew it was from her. He recognized her handwriting, a little slanted with soft dots on the eyes. She wrote about what she was learning, about teachers who made her think, and classmates who thought they knew everything. She never complained. She wrote about winning with a quiet smile and about losing with bravery. At the bottom of every letter, she always wrote the same thing: I haven't forgotten why I started. Victor kept every letter. He ran out of space on his board, so he began to pin them neatly on the wall in his office. His helpers never asked about them. The few guests who came thought they were just notes or reminders. Only Victor knew the truth. The letters were something special. They were proof of something real. Without Selena around, the big house was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet. Not empty, but peaceful. It felt like something was growing. Victor was changing too. First in small ways, then bigger. He talked less and listened more. He gave money to help sick people in the community, and he started helping at a place that taught young people how to start their own businesses. He didn't tell anyone it was him. He didn't want interviews. But the people he worked with noticed. The man who once cared only about money was now learning to care about people. One cool October day, he got a new letter. This one had a copy of an award. Selena had won it for doing so well in school. The letter wasn't signed, but Victor knew it was her. She wrote about the award, how she had stayed at the back of the room, unsure if she should go up, until the teacher called her name again. That evening, Victor framed the award and placed it next to her first letter. Later that week, she wrote about helping new students from other countries. She had been picked to be a helper. Many of those students were the first in their family to go to school. She wanted to help them feel safe and strong. Her words felt different this time. Still careful, but now with a little bit of pride. I didn't think I had anything to give, she wrote. But maybe what I've learned can help someone else find their way. Victor read that line 3 times. He sat quietly, holding the letter close to his heart. Outside, the trees were changing colors. Even the big house was changing. Some flowers were fading, but others, like the hydrangeas, had bloomed late. Time passed. Selena kept writing. Each letter talked about a small win, something hard she had done. She told him how she walked into a big classroom and didn't feel scared anymore. She shared how a classmate thanked her, not because she gave answers, but because she made them feel strong. She said she looked into a mirror and didn't recognize herself. Not because she looked different, but because she stood taller. She wasn't bragging. She didn't ask for praise. But Victor could feel it. She was changing inside. She wasn't just a student now. She was becoming a doctor. She was becoming someone who knew she mattered. Victor never wrote back. He thought about it, but he always decided not to. This was her space, her voice. Writing back might make it about him. And it wasn't, but he still helped in quiet ways. Every few weeks, the university got a big gift marked for general use. It was always enough to help more students. Selena got more money too, as a secret prize. And one day, a new laptop showed up at her dorm. There was a little note with it, for long nights and harder questions. She never said thank you out loud. But in one letter, she wrote, "Whoever you are, you remind me the world isn't as cold as I thought. Maybe kindness is strength. Maybe believing in someone can heal like medicine." Victor read that line out loud. His voice shook. He closed his eyes, the letter still warm in his hand. He knew then, the world doesn't change by shouting. It changes by tiny lights like fireflies, quiet, but powerful. And Selena was the first spark. 4 years passed. One bright spring day, Selena came back to the big house. She had taken the train and now stepped out of a black car. The ivy on the house walls was fuller now. The windows still sparkled. The gardens were trimmed just right. It looked the same. But she felt different. She used to mop these floors, iron clothes in the back rooms. But now she wasn't that girl anymore. She had studied hard for 4 years, learning about the human body, passing tough tests, fighting self-doubt. Now she had become someone new. She stood at the door. Her hand waited over the doorbell. Then she pressed it. The same chime rang, a sound she had heard many times, but now it felt like a new beginning. Victor opened the door. He looked a little older, more lines on his face, his hair more silver, but his back was straight and his eyes were warm. She smiled. "Hello, Mr. Grant." He smiled back and said, "Not today." She laughed. "Hello. Hello, Victor." He opened the door. She stepped inside. Her shoes clicked on the shiny floors she had once cleaned on her knees. The house looked the same, but it felt new, because she was new. She didn't feel like a stranger anymore. She walked like someone who belonged. They walked down the hallway in quiet, not a weird quiet, but a soft, peaceful one. In the winter garden, he poured her tea. He didn't ask how she liked it. He already knew. She nodded, thankful. They sat for a while, not talking. Then Victor said, "I kept all your letters." She looked at him, surprised. "All of them?" "They're still on the wall," he said. "When the house is too quiet, I read them again." Her eyes filled with feeling. She didn't know he had kept them. "I didn't think you would," she whispered. He smiled. "You once wrote that belief is the strongest medicine. I believe that now more than ever." She looked outside at the flowers. "I never thanked you properly," she said, "for helping me, for being there." "You don't owe me thanks," he said. "You did the work. You carried the load. I just lit the way." She placed her cup down. "But without that light," she said, "I might have stopped walking." He looked at her. "And now?" "Now I'm ready for what's next," she said. "Tell me," he said. So she did. She told him about her final exams, her hospital work, and the job interviews across the country. She talked about the friends she had made and the students she had helped. She told him about her patience, like a little child whose asthma got really bad in a shelter. Victor's face tightened. He cared. When she finished, they sat in silence again. But now it was a full, happy silence. He asked, "Do you ever regret it, leaving?" She looked out at the garden. "No," she said, "because on my way back I found myself." He nodded. The words filled something in his heart. Later, when she stood up to go, he walked her to the door. It didn't feel like goodbye. It felt like something was just beginning. Outside, she stopped and turned. "I'm opening a clinic," she said. "Not a big one, just 5 rooms and a waiting bench. In Queens, for people who can't get help anywhere else." "You'll need support," he said. "I have it," she smiled. He nodded. "The world just got better." She laughed. "I'm not sure it's ready for me." "It will be," he said, "because you're ready for it." She stood there a moment, then walked down the path. Her steps were calm. She didn't need to rush. She didn't need to prove anything. Inside, Victor went back to his office. The light was golden now. He looked at the letters on the wall. The paper was older, but the words still felt true. He picked up the newest one and read that line again. At the bottom of her note, she wrote, "I will never forget why I started, but now I know where I'm going." Victor read those words, then gently pinned the paper to the wall. He stepped back and looked around the room. This room used to be where he made plans and hid away from the world. But now, it felt different. It had become a place full of quiet strength and hope. He didn't think about being rich or powerful anymore. He thought about stories. He thought about people. He thought about a girl who once sat in his kitchen under a blinking light, softly speaking words from her biology book into the still air. Now that girl walked the world in a white coat with her name stitched in blue thread. Her future wasn't made by someone giving her help. It was made by her own hard work. Outside, the wind blew through the trees. Inside, Victor smiled. The house still looked the same on the outside, but it felt alive inside. In Queens, the air felt different. It was thicker, full of noise and smells. There were car horns, music coming from windows, and yummy food being cooked at small food stands. It wasn't like the quiet green fields near the big Grant house. But to Selena, this noisy place felt more like home than any other place she had ever been. In Queens, life wasn't quiet. It was loud and full of feeling. Her clinic was on a small street between an old laundromat and some worn-down houses. The building didn't look special. It was low and square, made of old bricks, and the windows didn't match. The roof had been fixed too many times. But inside, the clinic had a heart. The walls were clean and painted. The floor tiles were shiny. The furniture was simple, but it worked just fine. There were 5 rooms, 1 waiting area, and 1 big dream. It had taken a long time to make the clinic ready. Selena had to get permission, meet with city workers, and fill out many forms. She spent her evenings writing letters to ask for money to help, yes, and her weekends visiting stores that sold secondhand furniture. She picked out used exam tables and old file cabinets. She made deals, stayed up late talking to builders, and worked with people who forgot her name. But she never gave up. Every time something was hard, she kept going. She had done the same thing in medical school. Selena knew how to wait. She knew how to work hard. She named the clinic the Humana Clinic. Most people didn't know what the name meant, but to Selena, it meant everything. It came from a Latin word that meant human and kindness. She believed that everyone should get care, no matter what. Over the desk, there was a small sign that said, "Everyone welcome, no questions asked." There were no shiny signs or big names on the walls. The most important names were the ones in kids' drawings, the quiet thank yous in Spanish, Bengali, Creole, and other languages. Some languages she didn't know yet, but she was learning. The clinic opened without a big party. There were no balloons, no news stories. Just a few people came in. A mom with 2 coughing kids, a man with sore joints who hadn't seen a doctor in 5 years, a young woman too scared to go to the hospital. They came slowly at first. They didn't trust kindness that didn't come with forms to fill. But Selena welcomed each one with calm and care. She didn't ask them how they would pay. She only asked what they needed. Her team was small, 2 nurses from the neighborhood, a part-time receptionist studying to become a social worker, and a retired doctor who came 2 days a week to help. The rest of the time, Selena did it all. She welcomed patients, figured out what was wrong, treated them, filled out papers, and made phone calls. She stayed late many nights, even after the last person left. She didn't mind. She had made something that really mattered. And she wasn't alone. Even though Victor never came to the clinic during the day, he was helping in quiet ways. The medical tools were better now, thanks to secret donations. The rent was paid from a grant that showed up right when they needed it most. New vaccines arrived before the city even said they were needed, and they were already paid for. Selena didn't know where the money came from, but every time she got help, she smiled. She didn't need to ask. She knew. One evening after the last child left holding a sticker and a lollipop, Selena stepped outside. She sat on a bench next to the building. The wall beside the bench had a mural, a big painting of smiling children under a blue sky. In the middle was a tree with leaves made from painted fingerprints from kids in the neighborhood. She sat in the fading sunlight, her white coat over her shoulders, and closed her eyes. Then she heard footsteps, not fast, not slow, just steady. When she opened her eyes, Victor was standing there. He wore a dark coat. He looked thinner than before, a little more tired, but his eyes were the same. They found her right away. She didn't stand. He sat beside her. They said nothing for a long time. Cars drove by. Voices came and went. The city buzzed around them. But on that little bench, time slowed down. "I was nearby," Victor said. It wasn't an excuse, just something true. "I figured," Selena replied. "I didn't want to come inside. It's your space." "It's ours," she said softly. "You helped build it, whether you admit it or not." He nodded. He looked at the mural. "The kids think the building is magical," she said after a while. "They do? Is it?" She smiled. "In some ways, it's built on something stronger than bricks." He didn't ask what. He didn't have to. He reached out and held her hand. His hand was warm and strong. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything. He believed in her. He didn't want praise. He didn't want to be the center of the story. He just wanted to help her dream come true. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Their hands rested between them. Behind them, the mural glowed in the light of the sunset. Laughter from children floated through a nearby window. The world kept moving around them, busy as always, but in that moment, everything felt still. They had once been strangers. She was a tired girl with rough hands. He was a man filled with sadness and routine. But they found each other, and in finding each other, they also found themselves. They never said, "I love you." There were no big speeches, just actions, kind, steady, and real. And maybe that's what love really is. Not something you say, something you live. Later, when Victor stood to leave, she didn't stop him. He gently squeezed her hand and turned toward the street. Before he disappeared, he looked back. "Keep the light on," he said. She nodded. "I always do." The next day, the clinic opened again. By noon, the waiting room was full. A little girl with a fever, a man with a bad cough, a grandmother with swollen feet and no health insurance. Selena moved from room to room, just like she once did in a big fancy mansion. But now the rooms held real stories, not quiet loneliness. Each day brought new people, each night brought new tiredness, but she kept going. Because she wasn't alone, and because every time she listened to a heartbeat, wrapped a bandage, or told a worried parent it would be okay, she felt it. She belonged here. One evening, as she locked the door, she saw something behind the mailbox. It was a big envelope. No name, no stamp. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "You've made something beautiful. Thank you for showing me that kindness is never wasted." She smiled, folded the paper gently, and placed it in her coat pocket. Later, it would go in a special place with her medical books and her license, a quiet treasure chest of memories. In her office, the walls were plain, except for one photo. It was an old picture, a little blurry, a kitchen lit by yellow light. A young woman sat at a table, studying, a pencil behind her ear, not knowing someone was watching. That young woman was now a doctor, wearing her white coat, standing proudly under her clinic sign, her eyes clear, her hands strong. Not every story ends with love. Some stories begin with it and just grow. The house where it all started still stood far away, behind big gates and flower vines. But here, in this new place made with kindness and care, the heart of that old house had found a new home. Not in stone, not in silence, but in laughter, healing, and light. Thanks for watching. If you liked the story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Check out our other videos too. See you in the next one.